The third expeditionary fleet dropped out of jump space at the edge of the system, 40 warships materializing in perfect formation. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Hyun Lee studied the tactical display. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with cold fury. "Tactical report," she ordered. 23 Velcrin vessels detected, Admiral. They're in a defensive formation around what appears to be our cargo ship, the Sol Horizon. The Velcrin command ship has her in a tractor beam. Life signs on the Sol Horizon. There was a pause. 14 human signatures detected, down from the expected 15. The tactical officer's voice was grim. Everyone on the bridge had seen the broadcast. They all knew what that missing signature meant. Hyun nodded slowly. "Signal all ships. Battle formation Omega. Launch all fighters. Prepare to engage." Throughout the fleet, fighter bays opened and small craft poured out into space. Lieutenant Ji-woo Nam led her squadron out of the Indomitable's hangar, her fingers light on the controls. Behind her, 24 more fighters followed. Across the fleet, the same scene repeated. Within minutes, over 300 fighters formed up in attack patterns. On his command ship, Thexol watched the human fleet approach and felt the first stirrings of uncertainty. 23 Velcrin ships versus 40 human vessels. The numbers were not ideal, but Velcrin ships were larger, more heavily armed. They had the advantage. "High Commander Grexeth," Thexol said into the communications channel. "The humans have arrived as threatened, but they are smaller than expected. This will be a short battle." From his flagship, Grexoth studied the approaching human fleet. "Their ships are smaller than ours, yes. But do not underestimate them, Thexol. Humans are Deathworlders. They fight differently than civilized species." "They are primitives," Thexol replied. "Watch how quickly they break." He gave the order to open fire. The Velcrin fleet launched their opening salvo, energy weapons and missiles streaking toward the human ships. It was an impressive display of firepower, enough to cripple most fleets. The human ships did not slow down. Admiral Hyun watched the incoming fire with calm calculation. "All ships evasive pattern delta. Point defense full activation. Return fire when in range." The human fleet suddenly broke formation, each ship moving independently in patterns that seemed random, but were actually precisely calculated. They moved fast, far faster than the Velcrin expected. Ships that size should not be that maneuverable. The Velcrin missiles chased their targets but could not match the acceleration. Human point defense systems designed to track and destroy space debris, traveling at thousands of kilometers per second, found the missiles laughably easy targets. Lasers and kinetic guns shredded the incoming weapons before they could hit. Energy beams struck human shields and scattered harmlessly. The shields were designed to withstand radiation from close solar passes and impacts from micrometeorites traveling at relativistic speeds. Velcrin weapons, powerful as they were, could not penetrate. "Impossible," Thexol whispered. "Their shields should have failed." He had no time to wonder further. The human fleet opened fire. Railguns, accelerating metal slugs to a significant fraction of light speed, reached across the distance in seconds. The Velcrin had shields too, but they were designed to stop energy weapons and slow-moving missiles. They were not prepared for solid projectiles moving at 50,000 kilometers per second. 3 Velcrin ships were hit in the first salvo. Their shields flickered and failed. Hull armor, designed for energy dissipation, crumpled like paper under kinetic impact. 2 ships were disabled instantly, their engines destroyed. The third lost half its length, the front section simply vaporizing from the impact. "Evasive action," Grexoth shouted. "All ships, evasive action!" The Velcrin fleet tried to maneuver, but their ships were slow. Built for intimidation and long-range bombardment, not for dogfighting. The human ships circled them like predators, their superior speed and maneuverability making the Velcrin look like they were standing still. Ji-woo Nam led her fighter squadron into the Velcrin formation, her craft moving at speeds that would have killed most alien pilots. She pulled 8 gravities in a sharp turn, her body compressed by the acceleration, her vision narrowing. But she had been born on Earth, trained her entire life in 1.2 gravities. 8 Gs was painful, but she could handle it. Behind her, her squadron followed, pulling maneuvers that defied physics. They dove and weaved through Velcrin point defense fire, their small size and incredible speed making them nearly impossible to hit. "Target their engines," Ji-woo ordered. "The Admiral wants prisoners." Her targeting computer locked onto a Velcrin frigate. She fired a burst from her kinetic cannons. the armor-piercing rounds tearing through the ship's engine compartment. Secondary explosions rippled along the hull as the frigate's power systems failed. 1 down, 22 to go. Across the battlefield, human fighters swarmed the Velcrin fleet. The aliens tried to track them, but their targeting systems could not keep up. Velcrin pilots sitting in comfortable 1/2 gravity environments could barely pull 3 Gs before blacking out. They watched in horror as human fighters pulled maneuvers that should have been lethal. On the sole horizon, Day and his crew felt the ship shudder as the battle raged around them. The Velcrin guards in the cargo bay were distracted, watching the battle on their datapads, their faces showing growing fear. "Captain," Kai whispered, "they're losing." "The Velcrin are actually losing," Day nodded. He could hear the explosions through the hull, feel the vibrations of weapons fire. Somewhere out there, a human fleet was tearing apart their captors. One of the Velcrin guards turned to look at the prisoners, his glowing eyes wide. In that moment, Day saw it clearly. The guard was afraid. Terrified, actually. "How?" The guard clicked in broken human language. "How can you do this? You are primitives. You are weak." Jay, still injured but conscious, laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "We're from Earth, you idiot. 1.2 gravities, 90% oxygen atmosphere at sea level. Megafauna predators, lethal bacteria and viruses. We evolved to survive in hell. And you thought we were weak?" The guard had no answer. Outside, the battle was turning into a massacre. The Indomitable herself had engaged the Velcrin command ship, the massive dreadnought's guns firing in measured salvos. Each shot was precisely calculated, hitting engines, weapons systems, shield generators. Not destroying, but disabling. Captain Sujin An stood on the dreadnought's secondary bridge, coordinating her fighter wings. "Blue Squadron, concentrate fire on that cruiser. Red Squadron, I need suppression fire on the flagship. Gold Squadron, screen for incoming." The fighters responded instantly, their pilots moving with practiced precision. Another Velcrin ship went dark, its systems failing. Another lost its weapons and drifted helplessly. 12 minutes into the battle, 8 Velcrin ships were disabled. 3 were destroyed. The rest were trying desperately to escape. "Do not let them run," Admiral Hune ordered. "All ships pursuit formation. Target their engines. I want every single Velcrin vessel stopped." Grexoth watched his fleet being systematically dismantled and realized the truth. They had not attacked primitive civilians. They had attacked the civilians of a species that took the concept of revenge very seriously. A species that had sent 40 warships to respond to one distress call. A species that was winning. "Signal surrender," he ordered his communications officer. "All ships cease fire and signal surrender." "High Commander," his tactical officer protested. "We still outnumber them in active ships." "Surrender," Grexoth roared. "Before they decide to stop disabling and start destroying." The Velcrin fleet powered down their weapons and broadcast surrender signals. The human fleet did not stop firing. 2 more Velcrin ships were disabled before the humans finally ceased their attack. Silence fell across the battlefield. 23 Velcrin ships, now all disabled or destroyed, drifted in space. 40 human warships surrounded them, weapons still charged and ready. Admiral Hune's voice came across all channels, cold and clear. "Velcrin vessels, you attacked human civilians. You stole from them. You murdered one of them and broadcast it like entertainment. You will be boarded. You will surrender your command staff. You will answer for your crimes. Any resistance will result in your immediate destruction. You have 30 seconds to comply, 30 seconds of terrified silence. Then, one by one, the Velcrin ships opened their airlocks. On the sole horizon, the Velcrin guards suddenly found themselves facing very angry humans. Day stood slowly, and despite being unarmed and outnumbered, he walked toward the nearest guard. The Velcrin raised his weapon, but his hands were shaking. "You murdered Yuna," Day said quietly. "You beat Jay. You stole medicine from dying children. And now your fleet is defeated. You have 2 choices. Put down your weapons and surrender, or find out what happens when you push humans too far." The guards looked at each other. Outside, they could hear the sounds of human boarding craft attaching to the hull. The thump of heavy boots, the whine of powered armor. They dropped their weapons. The cargo bay doors exploded inward, and Major Tae-Young Kang strode through with his squad, their powered armor making them look like ancient gods of war. They took in the scene quickly. Injured civilians, surrendering guards, and one very angry cargo ship captain. Commander Thexel stood on the bridge of his command ship, reviewing the inventory of stolen goods from the Sol Horizon. The haul was better than expected. Rare minerals, technical equipment, and those valuable medical supplies would fetch excellent prices on the black market. It had been a profitable day. His communications officer interrupted his thoughts. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission. Human origin. Multiple sources. Play it," Thexal said, not particularly interested. Probably more begging from the cargo ship crew. The message that came through made him pause. And Admiral Hyun Lee, claiming to command a human fleet, demanding that Velcrin vessels power down and surrender, threatening destruction if they resisted. Thexal laughed. His bridge crew joined in, the clicking sound of Velcrin amusement filling the command center. "A fleet?" Thexal said. "The humans send threats about a fleet?" He looked at his tactical officer. "What is the nearest human military presence?" "Long-range sensors show nothing within 40 light-years, Commander. The nearest human naval station is 3 days' travel from here at standard speeds." 3 days, Thexal repeated. "And this admiral thinks she can frighten us with empty threats?" He activated the ship-wide communications. "Attention all Velcrin vessels. The humans are attempting to bluff us. There is no fleet. Ignore their transmission and continue operations," but something nagged at him. The message had seemed very specific, very confident. Thexal was arrogant, but he had not survived this long by being completely stupid. "Bring that human captain to the bridge," he ordered. "The one from the cargo ship. I want to ask him some questions." 10 minutes later, Dae Kim was escorted onto the Velcrin command bridge by 2 guards. The captain looked tired but unbowed. His eyes took in everything, noting the ship's layout and crew positions. "Captain Dae," Thexal said, "your military has sent us a very amusing message. They claim a fleet is coming to rescue you. I assume you put them up to this bluff?" Dae met the Velcrin commander's eyes steadily. "I don't know what you're talking about. We sent one distress signal before you jammed our communications. I have no idea who received it or how they responded." "Convenient," Thexal said. "You expect me to believe that a human fleet just happens to be within response range?" "I expect you to realize that attacking human civilians was a mistake," Dae replied calmly. "But clearly you're too arrogant to see that." Thexal moved fast, one of his arms striking Dae across the face. The human captain staggered but stayed on his feet. Blood ran from his split lip. "You will show respect, Deathworlder," Thexal hissed. "Your people may have evolved on some brutal high-gravity world, but that means nothing here. You are weak. Primitives playing at civilization." Dae spat blood on the floor. "If we're so weak, why does it take 6 of your soldiers to guard 15 unarmed civilians? Why do your guards look exhausted after a few hours in normal gravity?" The observation hit home. Thexal had noticed his soldiers struggling with the Sol Horizon's gravity. It was embarrassing, but he would not admit weakness to a human. "Take him back to the cargo bay," Thexal ordered, "and bring me one of the other humans. A small one. Female. The one who spoke about the medicine." Fear flickered across Dae's face for the first time. "Leave my crew alone. They've done nothing to you." "Exactly," Thexal said. "They have done nothing. They are nothing. And I will demonstrate that to anyone listening to your supposed distress call." Dae was dragged away, struggling now. "Don't do this!" "Whatever you're planning, it won't end well for you." His shouts faded as the guards took him from the bridge. Thexal turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel. All frequencies. I want this broadcast everywhere." 20 minutes later, Yuna Choi was brought to the bridge. The young medical officer looked terrified, her eyes wide as she saw the Velcrin crew and their weapons. Thexal had her positioned in front of the main view screen, where the broadcast cameras could capture everything. "What is your name, human?" Thexal asked. "Bora Shin," she said quietly. She was lying, protecting her real identity. "Smart, but ultimately pointless. I'm Bora Shin," Thexal repeated. "You are about to serve a valuable purpose. You will be a message to your species. A reminder that humans are not welcome in Velcrin space, that challenging us has consequences." In the cargo bay of the Sol Horizon, Dae watched the broadcast on a portable screen that the Velcrin guards had brought. His blood ran cold as he saw Bora standing on the Velcrin bridge. That was not her real name, but he knew who she was. Yuna Choi, 24 years old, fresh from medical academy. "No," Dae whispered. "Please, no." The other crew members gathered around, watching with growing horror. Hana put her hand over her mouth. Kai's fists clenched. Jay, still injured and barely conscious, tried to sit up. On the screen, Thexal pulled out an energy pistol. This is a message to any humans who think they can threaten the Velcrin Empire. The commander said into the camera. This is what happens to those who challenge us. This is the price of your arrogance. He pressed the pistol to Bora's head. The young woman was crying now, shaking with fear. Please, she whispered. Please, I don't want to die. Then your species should not have ventured into space, Thexal replied. He fired. The energy blast was quick. Bora, whose real name was Yuna Choi, fell to the deck and did not move. The broadcast continued for several more seconds, showing her body, making sure everyone watching understood what had happened. Then Thexal ended the transmission. In the cargo bay, silence reigned. 15 people, now 14, stood in shock. Several were crying. Others stood frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Dave felt something inside him break and reform, harder and colder than before. Yuna had been under his command, his responsibility, and she was dead because he had not been able to protect her. Captain, Hana said, her voice breaking. Captain, they killed her. They just killed her. I know, Day said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Distant. Cold. Jay pulled himself into a sitting position, pain forgotten in the face of greater horror. They murdered her, broadcast it like some kind of trophy. Kai was staring at his hands. She was 24 years old. She was supposed to get married next year. Her fiancé is waiting for her back on Earth. The guards watched them with cold satisfaction, seeing the grief and knowing they had broken something in these humans. What they did not see was the rage building beneath that grief, the cold, calculating fury that was taking root in each member of the crew. Meanwhile, 6 light-years away and getting closer, the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet detected the broadcast. In the Indomitable's bridge, Admiral Hyun Lee watched the execution in silence. When it ended, she turned to her crew. Increase speed, she said quietly. Maximum acceleration. I don't care if we burn out half the jump drive. Get us there faster. Admiral, we could damage the ship pushing the drives that hard, the engineering officer warned. Then we damage the ship, Hyun replied, her voice like ice. A young woman just died while we were traveling. We will not be late for what comes next. The fleet increased speed, reality warping around them as they pushed their technology to the limits. Somewhere behind them, they were leaving a trail of distorted space-time that would be detectable for months. They did not care. 40 warships full of angry humans racing toward an enemy who had just made the worst mistake of his life. Back in Velcrin space, High Commander Grexoth received Thexal's broadcast and immediately ordered his nearby fleet to assist. 15 additional warships changed course, heading to reinforce the commander. Together, they would have 23 vessels, surely more than enough to handle whatever the humans might send. Surely. Hours crawled by as the Velcrin soldiers stripped the sole horizon of everything valuable. Day and his crew remained in the cargo bay, guarded by 6 armed soldiers. The Velcrin rotated their guards every hour, and Day noticed they always looked tired when they came off duty. The ship's gravity was wearing them down, but they were too arrogant to admit it. Jay Wan sat on the floor nearby, his back against a cargo container. The security officer was a former Marine from Earth Defense Force, and Day could see the tension in his shoulders. Jay was trained to fight, trained to protect the ship and crew. Being forced to sit helpless was eating at him. Easy, Jay, Day said quietly. Not yet. They're taking everything, Captain, Jay replied, his voice low and angry. 3 months of work gone. And the medicine, I know. Day looked around at his crew, 15 people, all looking to him for answers he didn't have. Hana sat with her knees pulled up, staring at nothing. Kai was examining the guards, probably counting weapons and looking for weaknesses. Yuna was tending to a bruise on another crew member's arm, where a Velcrin had shoved them too hard. The cargo bay doors opened, and Commander Thexal entered with another Velcrin officer. This one wore even more elaborate armor and carried himself with cold authority. He looked at the human crew with undisguised contempt. This is Lieutenant Velcor, my second-in-command, Thexal announced. He will oversee the final inventory. Velcor walked among the cargo containers, his multiple eyes scanning everything. When he reached the medical supplies, he stopped. His mouth parts moved in what might have been a smile. These pharmaceuticals, Velcor said, they are quite valuable. Much more than simple trade goods. Those are for a plague outbreak, Yuna said suddenly, standing up. A colony of 5,000 people needs that medicine. Children are dying. Please, you can take everything else, but not that. Not the medicine. Velcor turned to look at her. He moved closer, his height making him tower over the small medical officer. Did I ask you to speak, human? No, but I'm begging you to listen. Yuna continued, her voice shaking but determined. Those people have nothing to do with this. They're innocent. They need that medicine to survive. Innocent? Velcor's voice was cold. There are no innocents among lesser species. You exist at the pleasure of your betters. If your colonists die, it is because they were too weak to deserve life. He struck her. His arm moved fast, the back of his hand catching Yuna across the face and sending her sprawling to the floor. Blood ran from her split lip. Jay was moving before anyone could stop him. The former Marine launched himself at Velcor, rage overriding his common sense. He was fast, faster than the Velcrin expected in the heavy gravity. His fist connected with Velcor's head, snapping it to the side. But there were 6 guards, and they all reacted at once. Energy weapons hummed to life. 2 guards grabbed Jay and threw him to the ground. A third kicked him in the ribs. Jay tried to fight back, but they overwhelmed him with numbers. Stop, Day shouted, moving forward. Stop, we surrender. We're not fighting. Thexel raised one hand, and the beating paused. Jay lay on the floor, gasping for breath, his face bloodied. The guards kept their weapons trained on him. Foolish, Thexel said. Attacking an officer of the Velcrin Empire. That is a death sentence, human. He was defending a crew member, Day said, forcing himself to stay calm. Your officer struck an unarmed woman. We're civilians, not soldiers. We have rights under Galactic Trade Authority regulations. Thexal laughed, that clicking, horrible sound. Rights? You believe you have rights? Let me explain something to you, Captain Day Kim. We are far from any trade authority station. We are far from any help. Out here I am the law. I am the authority. And I say your kind has no rights at all. He walked over to where Jay lay on the ground and looked down at him. This one has spirit. It would almost be a shame to kill him. Almost. Thexal nodded to Velcor. Teach him respect. The beating continued. Day wanted to look away but forced himself to watch. To remember. 2 guards held Jay down while a third struck him methodically. The security officer tried not to scream, but eventually, pain won out. His cries echoed in the cargo bay. When they finally stopped, Jay was barely conscious. Yuna scrambled over to him, her medical training overriding her fear. She checked his injuries with shaking hands. Broken ribs, she said quietly. Maybe internal bleeding. I need to get him to medical bay. You will do no such thing, Velcor said. He stays here. Let him serve as a reminder to the rest of you. This is what happens when Deathworlders forget their place. Yuna looked up at him with pure hatred in her eyes, but she said nothing. She stayed beside Jay, trying to make him comfortable. Thexal walked back to the center of the cargo bay and pulled out a communicator. This is Commander Thexal to all Velcrin vessels and to any listening on open channels. Let it be known that today, the glorious Velcrin Empire has claimed a human cargo vessel and its contents. The humans attempted to resist but were easily subdued. This is how we deal with primitive species who believe they deserve respect in our space. He was broadcasting this. Day realized with growing horror that Thexal was sending this message out on open channels, bragging about what he had done. It was a show of dominance, a warning to other species. Let this serve as a lesson, Thexal continued. The humans call themselves Deathworlders. They believe their high-gravity world makes them strong. But strength means nothing without the wisdom to know when you are outmatched. This ship, this crew, they are proof that humans are nothing special, just another weak species to be exploited. He ended the transmission and looked at Day. Your distress signal, Captain. Yes, we detected it. Very clever, hiding it in the background noise. But no one is coming to save you. Your fellow humans are too far away, and even if they were close, what would they do? Send more cargo ships? Send their pathetic defense forces? He laughed again. You are alone. You are helpless. Accept it, Day said nothing. He met Thexal's glowing eyes and kept his face blank. Inside, though, a cold fury was building. These aliens thought they were superior. They thought humans were weak, primitive, easy prey. They had beaten his crew member nearly to death. They were going to steal medicine from dying children. And they thought no one would make them pay for it. Kai, Day said quietly, looking at his engineer. How long has it been since Hana sent the signal? Kai checked his internal chronometer carefully. 4 hours, 17 minutes, Captain. 4 hours. If the signal had reached anyone, if help was coming, they would need time to respond. Time to get here. D had to keep his crew alive until then. He had to believe that someone had heard them. Thexall turned to leave, Velcor following. At the door, the commander paused and looked back. We will finish our inventory and leave within the hour. You will remain here under guard. Once we have departed, you will find your ship still functional. We are not savages after all. We leave you your lives and your vessel. That is more than you deserve. What about the medicine? Day asked. What about it? Thexall replied. It belongs to the Velcrin Empire now, as does everything else we have claimed. Your colonist will die, yes, but that is not my concern. Perhaps it will teach your species a valuable lesson about venturing into space before you are ready. They left, the doors sealing behind them. The guards remained, watching the crew with weapons ready. Day went to where Yuna was still tending to Jay. The security officer's breathing was shallow, his face pale. How bad? Dee asked softly. Bad, Yuna replied. He needs a medical bay. Real equipment. I can't do much here, Dee nodded. He looked around at his crew, seeing fear and anger in equal measure on their faces. They were counting on him to save them, to fix this. But he had no plan, no weapons, no way out. All he had was hope that someone somewhere had heard their call for help, and that they would come in time. 40 light-years away, deep in human-controlled space, the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet hung in orbit around a massive military station. Dozens of warships floated in formation, their hulls dark against the stars. These were not cargo vessels or civilian craft. These were warships, built for one purpose, to protect humanity's interests in a hostile galaxy. On the bridge of the fleet flagship, a dreadnought called the Indomitable, Admiral Hyun Lee sat reviewing supply reports when the emergency alert sounded. The bridge crew snapped to attention as the communications officer called out. Admiral, we're receiving an encoded distress signal. Human origin. It's faint, but the priority code is maximum. Hyun stood immediately. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but everyone on the bridge knew better than to underestimate her. She had commanded fleets for 15 years, and her reputation for swift, decisive action was known throughout the human military. Play it, she ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life with Hana's voice, strained and quick. This is First Officer Hana Park of the cargo vessel Sol Horizon, registry number H7745. We are being intercepted by Velcrin military vessels in neutral space, coordinates attached. They are forcing us to stop under threat of destruction. We are a civilian vessel with no weapons, requesting immediate assistance. Please, if anyone receives this, we need help. The message cut off abruptly. Hyun's face remained calm, but her eyes were cold. Get me the signal's origin point, she said, and pull up everything we have on Velcrin fleet movements in that sector. The tactical officer's fingers flew across his console. Signal originated from coordinates 779er, Mark 43. That's 40 light-years from our current position. It's along the neutral zone trade route. Velcrin activity? Hyun asked. Checking now, Admiral. The officer paused, reading data. Intelligence reports indicate increased Velcrin piracy in that region over the last 3 months. 7 merchant vessels have reported being stopped and robbed. No violence reported, but they've been taking cargo without compensation. Hyun's jaw tightened. Until now, they've decided to escalate. How old is this distress signal? Timestamp shows it was sent 4 hours ago, Admiral. 4 hours. The Sol Horizon could already be destroyed, its crew dead. Or worse, they could be prisoners being used as leverage or slaves. Hyun had read the reports on Velcrin treatment of captives. It was not pleasant. Status of the 3rd Fleet? She asked. All ships are in orbit, Admiral. Standard deployment. We can be ready to jump in 30 minutes. Hyun made her decision. Sound General Quarters. All ships prepare for immediate jump to combat status. Navigation, plot a course to those coordinates. I want us there in 6 hours maximum. Admiral, her executive officer said carefully, that's a long jump. Our standard drives would take 8 hours. We'd need to push the jump drives beyond normal parameters. Then push them, Hyun said flatly. There are human civilians under attack. We respond, that's what we do. Yes, Admiral. The Indomitable's bridge erupted into controlled chaos as the crew prepared for combat operations. Throughout the fleet, 40 warships received the alert and began their own preparations. Crews rushed to battle stations. Weapons were powered up. Jump drives began their charging sequences. In the hangar bays of the Indomitable, Captain Soo-Jin An walked among her fighter pilots. She commanded the Dreadnought's air wing, 3 squadrons of the deadliest fighter craft humanity had ever built. Her pilots were the best, trained to fly in conditions that would kill most alien pilots. "Listen up," Sujin called out. "We've got a civilian vessel under attack by Velcrin forces. 40 light-years from here. We're jumping in hot, so expect hostiles on arrival. Standard hunter-killer loads. Disable, don't destroy. We want those Velcrin alive to answer for this." Lieutenant Jiwoo Nam, her squadron leader, raised a hand. "Rules of engagement, Captain?" "If they fire on us, you are weapons free," Sujin replied. "If they try to run, disable their engines. If they try to hurt our civilians—" She paused, her face hard. "Make them regret it." The pilots nodded. Jiwoo grinned, a fierce expression. "Understood, Captain. We'll show them what happens when you mess with humans." Elsewhere on the Indomitable, Major Tae Young Kang was briefing his orbital drop teams. The soldiers stood in full combat armor, powered exoskeletons that turned them into walking tanks. These were the elite shock troops trained for hostile boarding actions and ground assault. "Intel is limited," Tae Young said, his voice amplified by his armor's speakers. "We know the Sol Horizon is a standard cargo hauler. Crew of 15. The Velcrin have at least 8 ships, possibly more. We need to be ready for anything." "What about the civilians, Major?" one of his soldiers asked. "Primary objective is their safety," Tae Young replied. "Secondary objective is capturing the Velcrin command staff. The Admiral wants prisoners for trial. Tertiary objective is securing any stolen cargo." He paused. "But remember your training. Velcrin evolved on a low-gravity world. They're taller than us, but weaker. Our armor gives us a 10-to-1 strength advantage. Use it." The soldiers checked their weapons, their faces grim and determined. They had trained for this exact scenario. Hostile boarding actions were dangerous, chaotic operations. But they were ready. On the bridge, Admiral Hyun watched the countdown timer. 20 minutes until jump. She brought up the tactical display, studying what little they knew about Velcrin ships. They were larger than human vessels, but size meant nothing in space combat. What mattered was speed, maneuverability, and firepower. Human ships were built different from most alien vessels. Humanity had evolved on Earth, a high-gravity death world with violent weather, dangerous fauna, and harsh conditions. Every human system was designed with that in mind. Their ships could pull maneuvers that would tear apart alien vessels. Their crews could withstand acceleration that would kill Velcrin pilots. "Admiral," the communications officer said, "we're picking up another transmission. Same source area. It's on open channels. Play it." This time it was not a human voice. The harsh clicking speech of a Velcrin filled the bridge. Hyun listened as Commander Thexal bragged about capturing the Sol Horizon, about subduing the crew. The translator software rendered his words into English, and with each sentence Hyun's expression grew colder. When the transmission ended, silence filled the bridge. Every officer looked at their admiral, waiting for her response. "They're broadcasting their crime," Hyun said quietly. "They're proud of attacking unarmed civilians. They think no one will stop them." She looked around at her crew. "They're about to learn a hard lesson. Send a message to the Velcrin commander, all frequencies." "Yes, Admiral." "What should it say?" Hyun's voice was ice. Message reads, "All Velcrin vessels in the vicinity of coordinates 779er Mark 43. You have attacked human civilians in neutral space. This is an act of piracy and a violation of galactic law. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning. If you resist, you will be destroyed." Message ends. The communications officer transmitted the message. Hyun knew the Velcrin would probably ignore it. They would think it was a bluff, a desperate attempt by weak humans to sound dangerous. They would be wrong. "Jump in 10 minutes. Admiral," navigation reported. "All ships confirm ready status," Tactical added. "The fleet is standing by," Hyun nodded. "Captain Sujin, launch fighters as soon as we exit jump. I want a combat space patrol established immediately. Major Tae Young, your teams are to stand by for boarding action. We don't know what state the Sol Horizon will be in." Both officers acknowledged over the communications net. "Admiral," her executive officer said, "the Velcrin have a reputation for using hostages. If they threaten to harm the civilians, then we will act accordingly," Hyun replied. "But we will not abandon our people, not ever. That is not who we are." The countdown continued. 5 minutes, 4. The jump drives reached full charge, reality distorting around the massive warships as they prepared to tear a hole through space itself. "All ships report ready. Tactical announced. Then let's go save our people, Hyun said. Execute jump. The third expeditionary fleet vanished from normal space in a flash of twisted light. 40 warships carrying thousands of crew and hundreds of fighters crossed 40 light-years in an instant. The journey would take 6 hours of subjective time, reality compressing and expanding around them as they traveled faster than light. And when they arrived, the Velcrin would learn why humanity was feared, why you did not attack human civilians, why the Deathworlders protected their own. The cargo ship Sol Horizon drifted through the emptiness of space, its engines humming quietly as it followed the trade route toward the outer colonies. Captain Dae Kim sat in his command chair, watching the stars slide past on the view screen. He had made this run 100 times before. 20 years of hauling cargo across the galaxy had taught him to expect the unexpected, but today felt different. Something in his gut told him to stay alert. Captain, I'm picking up multiple contacts on long-range sensors, Hannah Park said from the navigation station. The young officer's fingers moved quickly across her controls, her face tight with concentration. They're not broadcasting standard identification codes. Dae leaned forward. How many? 8 ships. Maybe more. They're in a formation pattern. Hannah's voice dropped. Military formation. Before Dae could respond, the communications panel lit up with an incoming signal. A harsh clicking voice filled the bridge. Human vessel, this is Commander Thexol of the Velcrin Imperial Fleet. You will cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with destruction. Dae exchanged glances with Hannah. The Velcrin had a reputation. They were known for stopping merchant ships in neutral space, claiming the right to inspect cargo and then simply taking whatever they wanted. Most species complained to the Galactic Trade Authority, but nothing ever changed. The Velcrin had powerful friends in the Galactic Council. This is Captain Dae Kim of the Sol Horizon, he replied, keeping his voice calm. We're traveling through neutral space under proper trade authority. We have all our documentation in order. There's no legal reason for you to stop us. The clicking sound that came through the speakers might have been laughter. Legal reason? You dare speak of law to me, human? Your kind barely left your primitive world a century ago. You know nothing of how things work in real space. Cut your engines now, or I will cut them for you. Dae felt his jaw tighten. He looked at Kai Song, his chief engineer, who sat at the engineering station. Kai shook his head slowly. The Sol Horizon was a cargo hauler, not a warship. They had basic shields and no weapons worth mentioning. Running would be suicide. Hannah, Dae said quietly. Can you send a distress signal? Already on it, Captain, she whispered back, her hands moving carefully under her console. Encoding it now with our position and the situation, but they're jamming most frequencies. Do what you can, Dae said. Then louder into the communication system. We're cutting engines, Commander Thexol. We're a civilian vessel. There's no need for violence. Smart choice, human. For a primitive species, you show some wisdom. The Sol Horizon's engines powered down and the ship began to drift. Through the view screen, Dae watched as the Velcrin fleet approached. Their ships were larger than his vessel, covered in armor plating and bristling with weapons. They looked like predators circling wounded prey. The Velcrin ships moved into position around the Sol Horizon, surrounding it completely. Dae counted 9 vessels now, each one capable of tearing his ship apart. His crew of 15 didn't stand a chance if this turned violent. Captain, Kai said from engineering. They're using tractor beams, pulling us toward their command ship. Dae nodded. He activated the ship-wide intercom. All crew, this is the captain. We're being boarded by Velcrin forces. Do not resist. I repeat, do not resist. Stay calm and follow their orders. We'll get through this. He hoped he sounded more confident than he felt. The Sol Horizon shuddered as it was pulled into the docking bay of the massive Velcrin command ship. Through the view screen, Dae could see dozens of Velcrin soldiers waiting for them armed with energy weapons. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and multiple arms. Their heads were elongated and their eyes glowed with a cold blue light. Hannah, did the signal get out? Dae asked quietly. I think so, she replied, but I don't know if anyone received it. We're pretty far from the main trade lanes. The airlock hissed open and Velcrin soldiers poured onto the bridge. They moved with an odd flowing grace in the ship's gravity. Their leader, presumably Commander Thexol, stepped forward. He was taller than the others with elaborate markings on his armor. Captain Dae Kim, Thexol said, his mouth parts clicking as he spoke. You will order your crew to the cargo bay. We will inspect your vessel and claim what we require. You mean steal, Day said flatly. Thexol's eyes seemed to glow brighter. One of his forearms shot out faster than Day expected, grabbing the captain by the throat. Day gasped as he was lifted from his chair. The Velcrin commander's grip was strong, but Day noticed something interesting. Despite the strength, Thexol was already breathing harder. The ship's gravity, perfectly normal for humans, seemed to be tiring him. You will not speak to me that way, Deathworlder. Thexol hissed. Your species may have evolved on some high-gravity hell world, but that means nothing here. You are in my space now, and you will show respect. He dropped Day back into his chair. The captain coughed, rubbing his throat. Around the bridge, Velcrin soldiers had their weapons pointed at the crew. Take them to the cargo bay, Thexol ordered. All of them. Start the inventory. Day and his crew were marched through their own ship at gunpoint. As they walked, Day saw Velcrin soldiers already opening storage compartments and checking manifests. They moved through the corridor slowly, he noticed. Heavily. The Sol Horizon's gravity was taking its toll on them. The cargo bay was huge, filled with containers of rare minerals destined for the outer colonies. But it also held something more precious. Hidden among the standard cargo were medical supplies, desperately needed medicine for a colony suffering from a plague outbreak. Thousands of people were counting on this shipment. The crew was forced to stand in the center of the cargo bay, while Velcrin soldiers worked around them. Yuna Choi, the ship's medical officer, stood next to Day. She was young, barely out of academy, and he could see her hands shaking. It's going to be okay, Day whispered to her. Is it? She whispered back. Captain, they're going to take everything, including the medicine. Day had no answer for that. He watched as Commander Thexol walked among the cargo containers, examining manifests on a data tablet. The Velcrin commander seemed pleased with what he found. Excellent, Thexol said. Rare earth minerals, medical supplies, technical equipment. This is a profitable day. He turned to look at Day. You should thank me, human. I could have simply destroyed your ship and taken the cargo from the debris. Instead, I'm allowing you and your crew to live. That is mercy. You're condemning thousands to death by taking that medicine, Day said. Those supplies are for plague victims, children, families. Thexol made that clicking sound again. Not my concern. Such valuable medicine will fetch a fine price on the open market. Your colonists should have been stronger, should have been better prepared. Weakness deserves no sympathy. Day felt rage building in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. Losing his temper now would only get his crew killed. He had to believe that Hana's distress signal had made it out. He had to believe that help was coming. But as the hours passed and the Velcrin continued to loot his ship, that hope began to fade.